Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Why, hello there, and welcome. Am I on? Yes, welcome. I'm sorry. I got to turn my thingamajiggy up here a little bit. I shouldn't have done that. Hello. It's, what is it? August 5th. The audio sounds a little funny in my ear. It sounds tinny or something. I'm talking to Carlo. Jess was at the Miley Cyrus concert last night, and I don't think has fully recovered. So, also, since it is a Tuesday, my kid's sister, Susan, who even though she got older, just had a birthday, is still trying to catch up to me and ain't ever going to make it. Hi, Suze.
Hi, except that, not to complain, but I can barely hear you.
Oh, boy. Okay, well, Carlo's going to try to get, can you hear me?
Just barely.
But barely works.
Yes, I can hear you.
Barely works. Okay, we can hear you loudly and clearly.
Oh, good.
Can the audience hear us? Then if that's true, everything's okay. So Susan speaks to us from Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Now, that's Wisconsin. It has a G in it.
You're telling me? I live there, too. Wisconsin. Yeah, right. Wisconsin. And, well, around here, here's how they say the state I'm in right now. Pennsylvania. They don't do the L. I say Pennsylvania.
And they do Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Well, they don't do L's at all around here. Like even the Steelers don't get an L. It's Steelers. It's a sort of swallowed L. Anyway, Suze, I mentioned your location because I wanted to talk a little bit about this story that I don't know if anyone is paying any attention to it, but I am. And that is about this weird is it algae or algae? Algae bloom. Algae bloom in Lake Erie.
How could you not pay attention to it?
What do you mean?
Time to pay attention, people. Let your lawns. I think it's time to outlaw lawns.
It wouldn't be a bad idea.
Exclusively grass lawns, or using fertilizer or anything that flows into the groundwater that gets into our lakes and streams and makes the algae grow.
The algae loves fertilizer. And I don't know. I mean, we can talk about lawns for sure because they are stupid and a waste of water. And to have a beautiful one, clearly, it requires poison and all kinds of toxic substances, right? You want to kill the weeds. You want to, make sure your grass is strong and tough. So there's fertilizers and
do you do any of that, really?
No, I don't do any. And
I'll admit, I live in an area of beautiful manicured lawns.
So
but I don't do it either.
So do I. The lawns look like carpets.
Right. I don't do it. If it's green, I mow it. I don't care.
Exactly. And
mostly I have violets.
Mostly I have
and wild strawberries.
Oh, cool. I have that's what I have. Exactly. Violets, clover. I have mostly clover.
I have a lot of clover.
And I don't know about strawberries.
Well, I have wild strawberries because somebody once at that house clearly put in a strawberry plant. And they are weeds and extremely invasive. I mean, and they will grow anywhere. But it's very cute. My lawn has strawberries all over it. What's bad about that?
Well, come on. If you mow it, I mean, the strawberries never make it, do they?
No, but it actually, it does. It keeps the little beasts out of any garden I might plant because it's delicious out in the yard.
Right. So, anyway, I mean, I agree. What I wanted to focus on just in general is our refusal to acknowledge that we have not paid attention to our water resources. And even now with California, people in California are starting to focus because they have this horrific drought.
But they're still trying to water their lawns. I mean, they have to have police out there telling people to cut it out. Right.
I don't know. I really, obviously a cultural change has to occur. And we have to have things get worse before they get better. But the problem also is in order for these things to happen, it's government that needs to step in. And government, as we've often spoken of, is in the thrall of the corporate community. And so, did you know the fertilizer lobby is huge? And the fertilizer lobby keeps state legislatures from even thinking about dealing with this runoff issue. Not that a lot of state legislatures are particularly interested in thinking about it or dealing with it anyway. But this Lake Erie thing and what has happened there is one of those canaries in the coal mine. And one of the pieces I read today said Lake Erie, this is happening in Lake Erie and not Ontario or Superior, because Lake Erie is the shallowest of the Great Lakes. But they mentioned one other Great Lake has a recurring problem, and it is Lake Michigan, but only in its bay, Green Bay, where you are. Right. Because Green Bay also is shallower than the rest of the lake, but Green Bay in and of itself is a huge body of water, as you know. Right. So Green Bay deals with these blooms, and the bloom sounds like such a nice word for something which is in fact toxic.
It's something else. It's more than just being shallow. It's also warmer.
That's right. That's right. So climate change has also contributed to this. So you get warmth, you get fertilizers being washed into the lakes by, I've driven by Toledo a lot on my way to visit our brother in Ann Arbor, because you curve around Toledo to head up into Michigan. And that's farmland. It's industrial right there, and then farmland. And since farmland has gone corporate, this is when much more of the problem has occurred. And there's the EPA has actually, no pun intended here, watered down its water regulations. This is nuts. We had 500,000 people who couldn't drink, whose water looked so disgusting, and who couldn't drink it. And and then you had in West Virginia.
And you can't even boil it. No. Boiling it doesn't do a thing.
No. Mm-mm.
So you had a city without water, anything.
Right. It's like, and it reminds us of what happened in West Virginia, right? That was a chemical spill as well. That one wasn't intentional. But what's going into Erie is perfectly intentional and apparently not illegal. This happens all the time. And they say...
Well, it's not illegal for you to fertilize your lawn. I say it should be. And this, to relate it to what's happening today in Missouri, it's Election Day.
Oh, yeah,
what's one of the amendments?
Right to
farm.
The right to farm. So where did I read the funniest piece? This is a constitutional amendment in Susan's state of, we call it now Missouri. And the only state that if this passes, in Missouri, you have the right to freedom, guns, and farming. farming.
Unalienable.
The unalienable right to farm. Now, why the hell would anybody need such a right? Well, they need that right so they can do what they've done with the Second Amendment, the gun lovers, and that is say you cannot in any way make any regulation to tell me what the hell I can do on my farm. Do you think it's going to pass?
I don't know. I am here's the problem. Who's going to vote?
Right. It's one of those
I am hopeful
August,
that
right.
this has gotten enough, thinking people riled enough to actually go vote. I mean, I did. It got me riled enough that I voted absentee before I left.
Well, that's one against the right to farm.
It was one against all of them, it made one of the funniest alliances I've ever seen because I discussed it with my mother-in-law.
Oh, right.
And my mother-in-law and I do not speak about certain things, and one of them is anything to do with anything political, but we found that we each agreed on all of these amendments and that we were going to vote no.
Well, that's because you're urban. So, here's the thing. Do you know these algae blooms, which, by the way, Toledo will have another. I mean, this is...
Yeah, this isn't like it's not going to happen again, right?
All up on the all along the coastline of Lake Erie, up into Cleveland. This is such a regular occurrence that the state EPA has a specific area on its website warning swimmers and others when it's safe to venture into the water, when and where. And so it could well be that another bloom shuts down Toledo's water supply again this summer. The reason this one shut it down is because it bloomed right over the city's intake for its water treatment plant. So what it does is it creates an oxygen-free dead zone for everybody else. And this is, I don't know, why aren't we paying attention to this? We know water is drying up in the entire western United States. Is not going to have any. The Colorado River, I believe, which services tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of Americans, is drying up. The mountains that used to have snow on them, which then melted and provided water for western states. There's not much snow on them anymore, and that's happening in the Andes to the south and all over the place. So all over the world, and do you see does any political leader ever even mention this basic need that is going to be very hard to come by for a whole bunch of people? And then what's going to happen? I see wars against states. I see like Wisconsin and Minnesota and Illinois and Ohio and Pennsylvania, all these Great Lakes states, like fending off California and the Southwest and Texas and Oklahoma. I don't know.
That is what's going to happen.
Well,
that is already happened. I mean,
it is in little
it's happening in the West between Colorado and between the users of the Colorado River.
And
you aren't even talking about the corporate ownership of water assets.
Excuse me?
There is corporate ownership of water assets. And it's a thing that none of us even think about, that they, can literally own the water from a certain water source.
Wait a minute. Like what? You mean they can't own Lake Michigan? They can't own the Allegheny River?
But they can buy property with a nice clear stream on it, and they can own that water, and they can use it all up and dry it out from adjacent properties.
Oh, boy. And our illustrious Supreme Court, ladies and gentlemen, as I alluded to before, has, in recent years, pared back, watered down the Clean Water Act, and it has limited the EPA's ability to protect wetlands and other watery areas. And that, again, is because of the agricultural lobby, and I don't know. God, I keep wheezing every time I... So, whatever. Got to tell you, by the way, if a hapless dog or any other animal happens to drink water that has these algae blooms in it, they're almost certain to die.
Oh, well, now people will care because they do care about their pets.
They care about dogs. Right. Right. I don't know. You know, I thought the West Virginia thing would wake people up to the fact that there's all of these toxins that are literally stored and even infused into our water still. Even now when we sort of know, I mean, even since Rachel Carson got people's attention. And nothing happened as a result of West Virginia. Almost nothing happened even in West Virginia because that state is owned by the poison industries. Chemicals. I still can't get over that when I drive down into West Virginia, there's a town actually called Nitro. Anyway, I just want to say, this is one of those subjects that we're paying no attention to, and it will become like terrorism is to us now.
And I just want to ask you all, what difference does it make what green thing is growing on your lawn? Just let it be green and cut it. And don't buy that. Do you really? I mean, look, I just saved everybody some money. Don't put fertilizer.
Yeah, but Susan, you're
that is going to run into your groundwater. I mean,
I agree.
We can maybe talk if we want the farmers to be able to use a little. Let's give it up on our lawns.
I'm for that. The problem is,
I don't want the farmers to use it either.
I know, but the problem is, of course, that most people like to fit in. And if you live in a neighborhood that it seems to be absolutely a must that you maintain this green, expansive carpet with poisons, then I don't think there are many people who have the internal fortitude to not do so. So I just don't. I don't. Ed says about lawns, and then there are all of the poisons and weed killers being sold wholesale at your neighborhood big box stores. Well, yeah, that's what we're talking about. And, I mean, most people who have these big lawns, they don't take care of them. They have landscape services, so their hands are free. You know, they aren't quite sure why their lawn looks so good. They don't realize that your lawn cannot look that way unless there's somebody that is regularly putting poison on it. We won't even talk what that does to certain insects, what it's done to birds, what it's done to the squirrels and all other beings. I don't know. Do you think we can get to a point, like sort of with smoking, that you start shaming people who have lawns?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's impossible. You change what is acceptable in culture. We're watching it happen all the time. I mean, you know, we can make things more liberal. Look at you know, example, gay marriage, or we can make things more restrictive. example, cigarette smoking. If you can change the public perception of what is right and appropriate, and you can actually do that very easily with a little bit of information.
Well, no, you need information.
We could make a huge difference. Yeah, it's not appropriate. Just grow what grows naturally wherever you are. I mean, that is a major trend in landscaping anyway.
Natural, yeah. I agree.
And then you don't have to fight so hard to grow it, by the way.
Okay. You've now reminded me of something that I just sort of keep in my little folder there. Can I?
Sure.
Okay. This is a conversation between God and St. Francis. Okay? God.
Okay.
God says, "Hey, St. Francis, you know all about gardens and nature. What in the world's going on down there? What happened to the dandelions, the violets, the thistle, the stuff I started eons ago? I had a perfect no-maintenance garden plan. I mean, those plants grow in any type of soil. They withstand drought. They multiply with abandon. The nectar from the long-lasting blooms attracts butterflies, honeybees, flocks of songbirds. I expected to see a vast garden of colors by now, but I look down, all I see are these weird green rectangles." St. Francis says, God, it's the tribes that have settled there, the suburbanites. They started calling your flowers weeds and then went to great lengths to kill them and to replace them with grass. Grass, says God. Grass? It's so boring. It doesn't attract butterflies. It doesn't attract birds or bees. And then St. Francis says, well, God, you see, these suburbanites go to great pains to grow this stuff and keep it green. They begin each spring by fertilizing the grass and poisoning any other plant that might try to be in their lawn. And St. Francis said, and then as soon as it grows a little, they cut it. God says, they cut it? I mean, what do they then bale it like hay? Well, no, not exactly, Lord. Most of them just rake it up and put it in bags. Bags, says the Lord. Is it a crop? Do they sell it? No, they pay someone to throw it away. And God says, wait a minute, let me get this straight. They fertilize grass, so when it does grow, they cut it off and pay to have it thrown away. Yes, sir, says St. Francis. God says, these suburbanites must be relieved in the summer, though, when we cut back on the rain and turn up the heat, and that surely then slows the growth of their grass and saves them a lot of work. Oh, no, Lord, St. Francis says. When the grass stops growing so fast, they drag out hoses and pay more money to water it so they can continue to cut it and pay to get rid of it. I could go on and on. Shall I have a few more little things? I mean,
yeah.
Okay. God says, well, what nonsense, what unbelievable nonsense. Well, at least they kept some of my trees. That was a sheer stroke of genius, if I do say so myself. I mean, the trees, they grow leaves in the spring to provide beauty and shade. And in the autumn, they fall to the ground and form a natural blanket to keep moisture in the soil and protect the trees and bushes. Plus, as they rot, the leaves form compost to enhance the soil. It's a natural cycle of life. You better sit down, Lord, says St. Francis. The suburbanites have made a new circle. As soon as the leaves fall, they rake them into great piles and pay to have them hauled away. And then after throwing away the leaves, they go out and buy something which they call mulch. They haul that home and spread it around in place of the leaves. And where do they get this mulch, says God? Oh, they cut down trees and grind them up. Ain't that about it?
Yeah.
The sheer unbelievable stupidity of it. Now, it is true you are seeing more, especially in the city, at which, people don't have big lawns. You see more and more people just getting rid of the grass. I've almost I keep encroaching my garden and plants into it, so I now have this teeny little narrow strip of clover and stuff. And ideally, I'll get rid of all of it. There's just no purpose served. All right, we'll get off. Chris, by the way, reminds us, I did not see the HBO show. I forgot. Susan, did you? Last night on HBO, they've released most of the Nixon tapes now.
Oh, right.
You have got to see this, says Chris. It was totally unbelievable. I knew he was an asshole, but I had no idea how much of an asshole. Some of the things he said were just incredible. Yeah, I've heard some or seen transcripts before. A couple of questions regarding Nixon. I was only turning 11 when he left office. Are any of his posse still around? Dean? Oh, yeah, Dean is very much around. Writing books left and right. Haldeman? I think Haldeman's dead. Also, since when did Frank Sinatra become a Republican? I don't know. I thought he was a big-time Kennedy supporter. I don't know. Well, we'll have to watch this. It's interesting what you got out of this. I know you were around to remember all that, but I don't think you have a clue how racist he... Oh, yes, I do. How he was racist, he was anti-Semitic, he was paranoid. I mean, he was
not a nice man.
He was a doozy. He had many demons. He was possessed of many, many demons. And he was so sort of contradictory. The thing about him I could never get is somebody who was so clearly uncomfortable in his own skin. You could tell just by the way he moved. I mean, that funny sort of hunched-shouldered. He was just sort of uncomfortable all the time. That somebody like that would enter a profession in which he has to speak all the time and be with people and be charming. And he just seems so sort of like his nature would have been to be reclusive, it would seem. But I guess his need for power. And he was apparently brilliant, smart as a whip. So, I mean, I always thought that all these presidents in that era, I mean, if Shakespeare were alive today, he would be writing, those would be, the tragedies. Richard Nixon would be a tragedy by Shakespeare. And because it's not as if he did not have qualities which could have made him a truly great president. And then Lyndon Johnson would have been a tragedy. JFK, obvious tragedy. Isn't that true, though? All of those guys.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for reminding me, because if it's on HBO, it's available all the time, right? Okay.
Yeah, we can on-demand it.
On-demand. So now, Susan, I want to just note the passing of James Brady.
Yeah, he was 40 when that happened. Because I was shocked when I heard that he died and he was only 73.
You thought he was older. Yeah,
I thought he was older.
Yeah. Well, no doubt his life was shortened by his injuries as well. And, here's a guy.
But I think it's also just a function of when I was a 30-year-old woman, 40 seemed a lot older.
Well, you're going to get us into a time thing that we've been talking about lately. That's true. That as you get older, right, time compresses. But what I wanted really to talk to you about today is I came upon this thing about the fact that young women do not want to be considered feminists, that they think of it as a awful thing to be. It's as if the right wing, as usual, has in their constant and conscious effort to
discredit everything?
Discredit everything that is progressive, yeah. And even the nomenclature, so that the word liberal is, a dirty word that liberals actually ran from and decided to call themselves progressives. I refuse to call myself a progressive. Feminist. Now they're running from that because it's been no young woman wants to be a feminist. And you can see they don't want to be because they don't understand what the movement was. Here's one young woman says, I don't need feminism because I'm not a victim. And here's another, I don't need feminism because the men in my life care about me and respect me.
What are they talking about?
Susan, again, while we were sleeping, apparently.
No, I've been noticing this a lot. I've been screaming a lot. Wake up! What we have only very recently, and it can be lost as easily as we got it. If you don't value it, bye.
Susan and I are of an age when we lived on both sides of this, pre-feminist and post-feminist. And we ended up being some of the first women to be liberated, literally, to be allowed.
To be liberated, to be allowed into certain places.
And professions and even, clubs. To be able to have your own checking account.
I'm talking about it in a judge's chamber as an attorney.
Yeah,
well,
sure.
Happen.
Well, I remember even when I was even here. So I came here, I was already in my 30s. And there were these dust-ups where a female attorney would go to court and the judge would throw her out of court because she was wearing pants.
I got called into a judge's chambers and put through my paces after the judge said to the opposing attorneys, watch this.
We all have these stories.
And let me tell you, my first instinct, because I'm a girl, is I was so angry I wanted to cry.
Yeah, see, exactly.
But I didn't.
Yeah, right, good. Because
I won the case.
Some of the girls still do cry.
Well,
you can't do it. I got to tell you. But you know what? Our travails and what happened to us, those are our experiences. And they are and because of the work that so many women did, and because of the work that
indignities that so many women withstood,
and so many politicians worked hard, and we got this stuff to become illegal. It was a civil rights movement. And here's the thing. Young women now, I suppose young men too, think this is just the way it is now. Oh no, this can be rolled back. And in fact is being rolled back in terms of women's health issues.
Well, and I would suggest to you that in the young corporate culture that is ruled by techie men, the 1950s absolutely thrives. There are very few women in those circumstances, right. and where they are there, they are mistreated because it's just like working in a large frat.
Well, but we know about that. I mean, that's what we did too. That's doable. It's doable. But anyone who thinks that if you don't be very vigilant, let's go to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was the second woman appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States. And by the way, that's another place women never, ever the thought of a woman on the Supreme Court. The thought of a woman senator. None of that. And look how different things are. People don't even blink anymore. But she said when Sandra Day O'Connor left the bench, she was the first, she was left alone with 8 men. And she was left alone with 8 men for 4 years, I believe. And she has said, I will say something. It isn't until somebody else, I will say something, she's saying, when the justices are sitting around their table talking, trying to decide a case. I will say something. And it isn't until somebody else, that would be one of the male justices, and it isn't until somebody else says it that everyone will focus on the point.
Right. Why bother to listen to the girl?
And especially because she, too, is this tiny little, she'd be the smallest little thing sitting around the table. And she's sitting around a table with old men who, frankly, are not used to treating women as an equal. And Justice Ginsburg has said that when she was the only woman on the court, she found it an extremely isolating time and very uncomfortable at times. And then we have Barack Obama, thank you very much, who has done nothing but give her company. So and you can see how the cases that have gone against women, and a lot of them have with this current court.
All men.
It's all men.
Ruling and dominion over our body.
Over the minority on the bench, which are women.
Well, I think it's necessary to constantly remind people that women only really, truly recently got the vote.
It's less than 100 years ago.
Less than 100 years ago. And within 100 years, we have huge numbers of young women that don't bother to get off their tushes to vote.
I know. Well, anyway, there's an interesting piece in the Times today about all this, and a lot of those folks who really have watched this court. By the way, Carlo, I don't take breaks anymore. Okay, if you're wondering. I think he was getting, I
actually marked the one off.
Yeah, but all right. Well, mark them all off. We're not taking them. So, the New York Times goes into the fact that people who are watching this court say it's really interesting because if you look at how this court has been deciding on gay issues, and then look at how it's been deciding on women's issues, they're going in totally different directions. And here's why they say they think that is. It has to do with the swing vote. And that's Justice Anthony Kennedy. And they say he is by nature a libertarian. He is also by nature paternalistic. Get that? If you think somebody's life experience doesn't inform how they process cases that come before them, you're out of your mind. That's why the women bring a different perspective to the court, and men of a certain age have a different perspective. And they say this, that Justice Kennedy lived in his mom's house till the day Ronald Reagan submitted his nomination to the Senate, and that he was surrounded by women in his life that all stayed within traditional roles, And Justice Ginsburg has said of him that some of his writings reflect ancient notions about women's place. Kennedy, on the other hand, has a number of gay friends. This is the difference. He sees women as needing a paternalistic hand. He sees gays as regular people because he has gay male friends. And he has been the swing vote in all three of the court's gay rights landmarks, and he wrote the majority opinions. Anytime the issue has been a woman's issue, whether it be the Hobby Lobby decision, whether it be the Lilly Ledbetter decision, he has been voting with the conservatives. One guy is the difference between on a court. He gets gay, he doesn't get female.
You know, but it makes you think that maybe we need to go back and restart the push for the Equal Rights Amendment.
Oh, God, Suze. Come on.
But clearly we are not being treated equally. We do not have equal rights to speak to our doctors about anything we want and get the medical treatment we need, as men do.
True.
We do not have the right to equal pay for equal work. It's nowhere is it encoded. We don't have it. We don't, we assume that we have a right now to be treated equally. And I suppose that there is that gender has been identified in some ways as a class for equal protection suits. But we don't have anything that we can point to and say, excuse me, you can't do that. You can't pay me less for the work that you just paid that man.
Well,
because the corporation can.
Well, wait. Well, but we are. Gender is one of the protected classes.
Well, it might be, but women are losing cases right and left under equal pay laws.
Oh, like the Ledbetter case. Exactly. Yeah. Right.
And a very high-profile case going on right now in St. Louis, a woman executive for Anheuser-Busch, who learned after the merger and after she retired that she had been paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year less than the man that preceded her. Which, of course, leads us to a whole other thing, the corporate rules about not letting anybody else know what you're paid and the fact that they don't publish what people are paid. It leads to all it, even though that in and of itself is illegal to say that you can't tell an employee what you make to anybody else in the company is that's pretty much illegal. But the culture of the corporation makes it something that you do not do. And that allows them to fly in the face of any protections that we do have.
Well, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, up in years, me and you, much less up in years, but still getting there. All of us ranting and raving about this doesn't do a damn thing.
No.
If young women don't, I guess, do you have to keep fighting the same fight over and over and over again? Maybe you do. Because young women take for granted that
people don't know what they have until they don't have it.
That's right. And we're fully aware of what it was before. It was unbelievable. Of course, no young girls are listening to this. All right. Okay. Speaking of young girls, Susan, here's the thing I wanted to run by you, and I don't know if you saw it in the New York Times. It was in the style section, so.
Probably not. I had a rather busy weekend, yes.
Okay. They, they start by telling you a true story of a 13-year-old girl in New Jersey who posted something on YouTube. and I'll just reenact sort of what she did. It says she looked into the camera and spoke in a near whisper because she didn't want her family hearing her. And here's what she said, and this is the video that she uploaded or downloaded. Is it upload? What's the difference in upload and... Oh, upload goes one way, download comes the other. I never thought of that. Okay.
But what she posted, yes.
She posted. People at my school and camp say I'm the most ugliest person they've ever seen. And I could be the ugliest person that could ever be living. But be honest, and tell me if I am ugly or not. I can take it, but please don't say really mean stuff. And then she put it up there with a title, Am I Ugly or Pretty? What do you think happened?
Nastiness ensued. I'm probably a mixture of both. People saying you're beautiful and then a bunch of...
No, mostly awful. More than 2,000 comments. And all that she learned, she didn't learn whether she was pretty or ugly. She learned that there's a lot of ugly out there.
There's a lot of ugly people out there.
In the world.
You betcha. And it's not about how they look.
There are people that told her to kill herself.
Oh.
Okay. So, turns out, Susan, if you go to YouTube and you search for Am I Pretty, it will turn up more than 23,000 similar videos. Almost every one of them a girl between the age of 12 and 15. Which, of course, is the most vulnerable age.
And also, I mean, it's not when you look like the way you're going to look. I mean, you're vulnerable psychologically, but you're also transitional.
God, I mean, absolutely.
It's an
awkward age. But to turn to perfect strangers,
into the
put yourself
of who you are
out there. And they talk to psychiatrists about this, and some psychiatrists say, I see this as a new form of self-mutilation. Where girls are participating in their own self-abuse. And then,
well, it's certainly some sort of masochism, but it's not, because that means that they are aware that what is going to happen is guaranteed to be negative, and I don't think that at this, they are as incomplete in their thinking as they are in their growing. So to attribute, knowledge of what's going to happen to them before it happens is I think, unrealistic.
Well, one of the shrinks they contacted said, can't we make this, how do we get YouTube to make this illegal? That was the reaction. You can't do this to these kids. Isn't there a way to stop this? But of course, there isn't. There isn't.
Well, you could. I don't know. You could make. The only thing that you can do is require that the hosters of these sites exercise control over them, so that they immediately take down things that are, decided to be inappropriate. They do, in fact, do that. They do that for copyright infringements and things like that. Videos disappear all the time, and so it's Facebook is required, for example, to exercise some sort of control over what goes on, and I understand that the internet is this vast, unregulated, and isn't that wonderful space, but in fact, it's not.
Well, wait a minute. Can't YouTube? I know it would go against its ethos.
I mean, YouTube, for example, you aren't going to find child pornography on YouTube.
Right, exactly. So there are limits. There are limits.
It does exercise some sort of control.
That's right. There are limits. And I'm thinking, why wouldn't whoever is in charge there
stop this.
Stop something that they know is tantamount to child abuse occurring on their property. And
would they let a child advertise for a public stoning?
Well,
because that's what this is.
So I'm also wondering, would you? I mean, my sense of, again, as you say, it's just a lawless. Generally, that's the ethos. Anybody, you put yourself out there, you get what comes. But I'm wondering if why can't a YouTube, an internet, if they see something like some guy putting on this girl's, answering this girl and saying, you should just kill yourself. Or that might be another girl doing that. You just go kill yourself. Why can't they block that person for life? Can't they do that? Do they have anybody looking at this content and couldn't they clean things up?
No, they rely on, mark this contact. Everybody has one of these mark this content as inappropriate boxes. But who knows? I mean, obviously they don't. And I think it should be required. I believe in a certain amount of lawfulness.
I believe in a certain amount. I believe in an ethos in which we do protect our children.
Yeah.
I don't get it. And the fact that there are 23,000 Am I Pretty? If you just search for that one thing, Am I Pretty? So that's potentially...
She put up Am I Ugly?
Yeah, am I pretty? Am I ugly? Am I this? So whatever. I mean, I'm sure they sort of get... The fact is there's tens of thousands of young people who have done this and have probably been harmed by it, by the response that they then get. And I can't believe what we... I don't know. And this is where people will say, no, it's up to parents.
Well, no, I mean, I think you could probably force disclosure of who these anonymous posters are and go and sue them for intentional infliction of harm. When is that not assault?
We know there are cases of girls committing suicide. I can think of a number of them. One who jumped from some warehouse, another who hung herself, and all as a result of this kind of what is internet bullying. And some of the shrinks that were interviewed in this piece said that some girls might be making these videos as a preemptive strike against bullying, a way to essentially get to say hurtful things about themselves before somebody else can, as a way of saying, okay, fine. I mean, I don't know, but gee. I don't know.
It's pretty awful.
So
but it's it's all awful that what concerns our young women of today is not. Is all the things, to get back to our original conversation, that we tried to fight against. That it's not about how we look. It's not about what we wear. It's what's going on in our heads. We're valued as human beings, not as objects.
Right.
And all our young women are growing up with this bullshit. It's all about how you look. It's all about how you're shaped. It's all about how you dress. It's all about what you own. And you strive to be someone's perfect possession.
Well, if you think about it, since we were liberated, the commercial objectification and sexualization of girls has exploded. It's
been exploding for years. I mean, I can remember 15 years ago, I can remember when my daughter was little and I was screaming about
the clothes,
not wanting to dress her in cocktail dresses when she was 5 years old.
Right. It's beyond me. I don't know. So I guess we don't protect them. We just don't protect them. It's so sad.
Not only do we not protect them, but we have a culture that grooms them. That really it does just what a child molester would do. It grooms them to be the perfect product.
And then you think of like that book, which neither of us have read, which now has been made into a movie.
Oh, God.
That 50 Shades of Grey thing.
Oh.
And that takes off like, women can't get enough of it. And it's about, right? It's about a woman being an object.
Right.
A possession.
It's
a sexual object to be used.
It's S&M porn.
Light.
And now all women are supposed to be the masochistic, love of a sadistic rich guy. Oh boy!
Oh, this is so exciting! I am too. Okay, Ansel writes, "This am I pretty conversation hits home with me. My daughter, after her second high school boyfriend breakup, asks me, 'Am I pretty?' That was a challenging conversation because she wasn't going to believe me anyway. She wants that answer from a boy, not from her father. I got through that, but the conversation haunts me to this day." A second comment I have is, the anonymity of the internet brings out the absolute worst in people. Asking, "Am I pretty?" to the anonymous web is really, is the wrong audience, of course. It does definitely bring out the worst in people. Chuck writes, a few years ago, Google, with the release of their Google Plus applications, which are similar to Facebook, changed their names policy and required users to have real names and to prove their identity. After 2 years of trying to enforce the policy, just a few weeks ago, Google announced they're eliminating it, because the resources required to enforce it, I guess, were costing them too much money. So no, Pandora's box is open, and the most vulnerable people are paying the price for this lawless universe that they inhabit more than older people who could handle maybe it better. It's just wow. So anyway, I wanted to bring that by you because I was just so sad.
I guess the only way we protect our own children is to raise them with a sense of self-worth that is strong enough to withstand the constant societal buffeting against everything we're trying to do.
But as Ansel says, at that point, 13, 14, 15, 16, a parent's, protestations
listen, at that
don't
point,
mean
18,
anything.
19, 30, 31, a child seeking reassurance from their parent is always going to say in the back of their mind, yeah, well, that's my mom, of course that's what they're going to say.
That's right.
Or that's my dad, of course that's what you're going to say.
Right. So,
but don't think, I'd like to say to Ansel, don't think that your daughter doesn't cherish that conversation and didn't take very much to heart every piece of lovely stuff you said to her, because what it did tell her is that she was loved.
All right, now before I start crying, I'm going to hang up. That was very sweet, Susan. All righty, we're done. Protect your children! And stop dressing these little girls like sluts!
Don't let society overrule your good judgment.
And stop fertilizing your goddamn lawn.
Grow strawberries. They're like weeds.
Clover. Clove, I'll tell you, it's wonderful. Jeez, there's no such thing as a weed.
A weed is a flower growing in the
wrong place. As absolutely true. All right, I think we're done screaming at you.
Okay, bye.
Bye, Suze. Okay, bye. You guys, see you tomorrow, okay? Have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.